Habitat forming. As an OCD, ADHD, Midwestern American boomer, I need structure. Give me land, lots of land, and the starry skies above? Sure, but give me work. But not too much work. 5 years ago, I began working part as opposed to full-time in bike shops. In theory. Part-time varied from 30 to 40 plus hours until last winter when the seasonal cycle of bike sales in the North Temperate Zone cut my work hours dramatically. Dramatically as in perhaps 14 hours per week. Late this October, my hours were cut to the 14-hour week range, and for November, they've been slashed to 7. For the whole month. COVID brought a bike boom to the earth, and about 14 months back, I began collecting, rehabbing, and selling used bikes. A perfect fit to fill my time and keep some money coming in to augment my main wage-earning wife's income. Working in the bike shop gave me great access to bikes that were in such a mess that they were deemed beyond cost-worthy repair by their owners, and I rehabbed dozens of bikes. Problem is that not working in a bike shop greatly curtails the access to clunkers in need of love. Bother. Faced with too much time on my hands, I decided that USA's ongoing COVID recovery had brought us to a point where acting in community theater productions among the fully vaccinated would be a low-risk, high-benefit time suck and a great way to fill the long, cold, empty days. I auditioned for 2 productions. Rejected. What's a boy to do with too much time on his hands? Volunteer. Living in suburban Raleigh, I have an established set of streets upon which I pedal. One of the streets I cycle on as I travel to and from work is Trimble Avenue. Prior to COVID, the east side of Trimble began showing signs of a multi-single home construction project. The 7 driveways turned out to be precursors to 7 modest, single-story, 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses that began to grow under the auspices of Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for Humanity is an organization that helps economically marginalized folk become homeowners. Habitat also requires recipients to take classes on how to be a homeowner and to pay forward, or is that back in this case, with volunteer work. As I cycled to work as the project was fully underway, I would frequently holler out praise to the volunteers as I rode by, but words, as the saying goes, are cheap. And yesterday, I volunteered to help at the construction site. The experience was great, and it provided me with a few anecdotes and fired up a semi-relevant memory which I'll share. First, the process was easy, even for a technology-inept boomer. I signed up for the Trimble Street build site, and Habitat told me where and when to go and what to bring and where. We started pretty much on time, and team leaders directed us in our tasks, which, in the case of my team, was a straightforward job of prepping a dozen rough-hewn window openings for installation of windows. Team leader Avery directed us, and we worker ants got to the task of doing as directed. One of my aha moments came as I stood outside on the ground, holding a window in place while a teammate hammered 6 feet above my head. Hammered. Above. My head. Safety instructions had included the mandatory usage of hard hats, and as I stood vulnerably exposed to the possible falling objects, my mind went back to 1974 in Argyle Junior High. 8th grade brought a reunion with a then very young social studies teacher, Mr. Schultz, who had arrived back on the job sporting a very large and ugly scar across his nose. Seems someone had dropped a cinder block on his head, and the hard hat had either saved his life or at the very least prevented him from receiving serious and possibly debilitating injury. Having been raised in a home where safety was a priority, I greatly appreciated the hard hat. No, my teammate did not put my hard hat to the test. I also got to witness an incredibly sexist and ageist exchange that wasn't. Team leader Robin had an interaction with a contractor of my vintage who acted in a stereotypical and demeaning way straight out of a 1970s All in the Family TV show episode. I was livid for her sake and spoke to Robin afterwards. But it turns out I was all wet. All in the Family episode 21, Everyone Tells the Truth, shows an event with 3 different people see the same thing 3 different ways. And it turns out the interaction I witnessed between Robin and the contractor was not as I saw it. The contractor did say things and treat Robin in a way I found appalling and unacceptable. But when I spoke to her about it, she explained that the contractor is a longtime associate with whom she has a great relationship and that theirs was playful banter. Robin explained that the behavior I witnessed coming from him was perfectly fine and that what I saw wasn't as it appeared. I'm really glad I asked rather than staying with the ugly conclusion to which I had erroneously jumped. My last major takeaway from my Habitat experience was to not volunteer to do activities that require a lot of movement the day after receiving a COVID booster shot. Whoa, was I tired and sore. Pretty sure most of that was my body's response to another round of anti-COVID juice, but I guess I'll need to volunteer again next week just to make sure. I think this could be habitat forming.